Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Wood. I'm the Special Interest Session Coordinator, and happy to see so many people here tonight. And I want to introduce you to Marie and Chuck Huston, who will be presenting this session on 6,000 miles in flip-flops, the Great American Loop boating trip. They took this trip on, I think you said about over a year. And yep. And I wanted to ask Marie if they really stayed in flip-flops for the entire year. So go ahead and let us know about that.
Yeah, we did. We pretty much wore flip-flops for an entire year and shorts.
We stayed out of the snow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are on.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because we do have a PowerPoint presentation with some pictures, and then we'll describe the pictures as we go through it, and we'll take you on the Great American Loop. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So if you can see a picture of the Andy Bow, the red Nordic tug, taken on the waves, let me know if somebody that can see this, just to make sure that we're sharing correctly.
It's there. It looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll get started. So I'm Marie Huston. I'm a 20 plus year guide with Ski for Light. And this is my husband, Chuck, who's joining me and who joined me on the Great American Loop. So we'll get started.
Once in a while I get to visit some of the Ski for Lighters.
Yeah, some of you may have met Chuck. Once in a while he gets to visit and
just occasionally
come by and say hi. The Great American Loop is a 6,000 mile circumnavigation of the eastern portion of North America. And I bet you're wondering, how did two Coloradoans end up on the Great American Loop? Well, we kind of had COVID retirement happen. I left the YMCA of the Rockies at Snow Mountain Ranch, and we were moving to Grand Junction, and there was no jobs in hospitality. And we pretty much had always wanted to live on a boat. And so we took that opportunity and made it happen.
A lot of things happened to make, fell into place to make this happen.
Yeah, so we really were very fortunate to be able to go on this experience. The picture that you're seeing here is of Andy Bow taking on the waves. And what do they call it? They call it when you're in the green water, which means that the waves are going over the front of the bow of the boat. And this is like, we call this the Andy Bow glory shot, because she looks really tough because the waves are coming over the bow and she looks really tough in this picture. So I wanted to start with that one. The next slide that we have here is on the left side, there's a map of the Eastern United States, because we're going to go through kind of our journey on the loop. And the map here shows the different places that we went on the loop. It's pretty much from the Mississippi to the east of the United States is what the map is. And the other pictures here, we have a little picture of Chuck sitting on the bow of the boat with a fishing rod. He's our captain. And then there's a picture of me in the helm station that we'll describe to you. And I was the navigator. So those kind of were our two roles that we played on the boat. The bottom left has a little burgie. It's like a triangle shaped flag with a little indentation taken out of it. That was part of the Great American Loop Cruising Association. And you hung this burgie or this flag on your boat to show other boaters that you were doing the loop. And then it's kind of was like it was like a club.
And then you got invited to a lot of cocktail.
Yeah, you got invited to a lot of cocktail parties that way. So it was a crucial piece of equipment for us to have. So
hop in your dinghy and go to cocktails.
Yeah, exactly. So you travel the Great American Loop counterclockwise with the seasons to avoid the hurricanes, the spring runoff on the rivers, and to always be in great weather so you can wear flip-flops. The waterways that we traveled, and we did this counterclockwise. So we first started in Florida. We were on the Okeechobee Waterway, which goes through the middle of Florida. We went up the Atlantic intercoastal waterway into the Chesapeake Bay, across the C&D Canal, into the Atlantic Ocean from Cape May to New York Harbor, up the Hudson River, across the Erie Canal, into the Niagara River, through Lake Erie, up the Detroit River, into Lake Sinclair, through Lake Huron, down Lake Michigan, into the Chicago River, the Illinois River, the Mississippi River, the Ohio River, the Cumberland River, the Tennessee River, the Ten Tom Waterway, and then came out in Mobile Bay by Mobile, Alabama, and then across the Gulf of Mexico back to Florida. So our trip took us about a year to complete. We started April 15th and we completed the first part of December. We traveled 7,000 miles through 16 states. We averaged about 50 miles a day. We navigated 74 locks total. The highest lift we did was 84 feet. We spent just under $7,000 in diesel gas, and about 70% of our nights we were at anchor, and about 30% of them in a marina or on a free wall or a place that you could tie up in a town or a dock that people allowed you just to tie up at. This picture here is of the Andy Bow, our boat, which is named after our daughter. And so I'm going to let our Captain Chuck describe the boat to you, which was our home for a year.
Okay, this is a trawler boat. That means it goes slow, and it's good for liveaboard. It's red in the hull and white on the top sides. It's striking. It's pretty. And I'm going to start at the back of the boat. The back of the boat is called the stern, and it has a little swim platform. It's about 2 feet deep. Goes across the entire stern of the boat. It holds our dinghy. It's kind of our dinghy sort of folds up, mounts right there. It's also where you can put your flip flops and snorkel and stuff on. The name of the boat, Andy Bow, is named after our daughter. That's printed on the back of the boat in white letters. As you go over the stern of the boat into the rear, what do you call it? Kind of the
Salon.
no, not that's basically the deck.
Yeah.
The deck, and it has a little bimini top. It's a canvas top just for shade protection, rain protection. It covers the back deck. It's relatively small back there, but it's big enough for a couple of chairs. You can watch sunsets and throw a fishing line out. Then you go through the doors. Okay, you're going through the twin doors made out of wood. They're at the back. The hatch goes up. You take 2 steps down, and now you're in the main salon. The main salon is where you have the dinette. It's an L-shaped couch goes around this dinette that can be used as a bed too. It folds down, and that's at the rear port side or left side of the boat. And if you're looking catty corner across the boat to the starboard side or the right side of the boat and forward, that's the kitchen area. Or they have 2 names for everything. You have a land name and you have a boat name. The boat name is called the galley. It just means kitchen. Anyway, a single sink, 2 burners, a small refrigerator underneath the countertop, and that's kind of it. Keep it simple. We do have a microwave and a little toaster oven in there. Marie makes open face tuna fish sandwiches sometimes. Really
I do,
good.
yeah.
It's my favorite lunch. Okay, so also there's a little TV mounted on the corner that we watch sometimes, and a DVD player. Okay, so you go now. This is in the square salon area is kind of the bulk in the middle of the boat. Now you're going forward. You take 2 steps up, and now you're in a sort of a raised, about 2 feet higher. This is, well, it's the captain's quarter, not the quarters, but the helm station. This is where you steer from. And this is where you look out the windshield. You have a great view because it's elevated a couple of feet. It's where all the electronic controls are. It's where the steering wheel is, the radio. No, when I say radio, I don't mean the music radio. I mean the communication radio, which that's good for calling ahead to the bridges, calling ahead to the lock tenders, emergency situations, listening to the Coast Guard reports, the weather reports, contacting other boats, contacting the harbor master if you're going into a port. You contact them. You call ahead for fuel, pump out, just communicating all the time with this. So that's a key piece of equipment.
Yeah, and the other thing, I'll just jump in because here I'm the navigator on the boat, is that's where our Garmin GPS navigation is, and a combination of that. And then on my iPad and on my iPhone, I have redundant charts and maps. We also have the regular physical maps, physical charts. And we use an app called Active Captain, which is a lot like Google Maps on your phone. It tells you where everything is, but it's everything that's on the water, where there might be an anchorage, where there might be a marina, and that connects with our GPS Garmin on the boat. We also have radar.
Tell them about windy.
Oh, and yeah, my favorite weather app the entire time was Windy. Love that app. So we would check that too before each day, pretty much.
How fast that wind's blowing. That's the key one.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, we're in the main raised helm station right now with all the controls. The floorboards, what you're standing on, is the hatchway to the engine. There's two boards. You pull them up, and you step down into the engine compartment. They called it the engine room, but boy, that's not exactly accurate. It's too small for me, but that's where all the dirty work gets done. That's where you change the oil and you fix things and repair. Anyway, the generator is also down there. So you put the floorboards back, and then, okay, now we're leaving the helm station, and we take a couple of steps forward down through the middle of this area. And now you're in the bedroom area. It's called the V berth, and it's also where the head is, or bathroom. That's on the the starboard side, the right side of the boat, and it's like any small bathroom you'd imagine: sink, toilet, and shower. The shower's a little tight for me, but hey, it's okay. Marie's got a little shelf there, and right above her little shelf is a porthole, for getting the fresh air and seeing the birds go by. There's also a little porthole inside the shower. She's got some shells on this little shelf. She's got Little Mermaid sitting there, a little bit of artwork, a little sculpture. So this is a whole little diorama. There's other artwork in the boat. There's pictures that my daughter painted, pictures from places we've been. Anyways, it's very homey. Okay, so forward still from this head or bathroom is the actual V berth. Now it's called a V berth because the pointy part of the V, where usually our feet are, that's at the very front of the boat, at the very bow. It's a pretty comfortable place. And right above your heads when you're in the V berth is the forward deck. So if you go back outside, on that forward deck, that's where the anchor is. And we don't have a windlass to automatically bring it up and down. So we have to manually drop the anchor and lift it up. Marie sometimes has to give the boat a little nudge to help me get it dislodged before I can pull it up.
I call it his morning calisthenics, raising the anchor.
But anchoring it's kind of a team sport. It's good when you have a little help. The one thing I forgot to tell you, is that you can walk along the sides of this boat, carefully. There's a door out each side of the helm where you steer, so you can slide your door from where you're piloting all day, and you can get to the outside for catching the lines, getting to the dock, catching the bollard on a lock, that kind of thing.
And the other thing Chuck forgot to tell you is it has an adorable tugboat air horn. Toot, toot. It does that.
It's got a bell.
And a bell.
Horn. Yeah, we're just it's so cute, you can't hardly believe it.
Okay, so now you've seen our home. This is where we lived in for a year, and now we'll start on the journey. So the first part of our journey was up the intracoastal waterway. This consists of bays and rivers that are connected amongst barrier islands, and you can travel the entire eastern seaboard on this waterway. The picture that I have showing here is of an anchorage that we were at in Georgia, and it's like a sea of grass. What's interesting about the sea of grass is that the water pretty much makes the sea of grass disappear at high tides, and then the grass comes and shows up again at low tide. It's a pretty cool environment, this grassy sea area.
With just little rivers going through it.
Right. And there a lot of the Georgia coastline, Carolina, South
Jersey.
Carolina, North Carolina had a lot of this grassy area in it, in the rivers that we went in between the different bays.
Marshlands.
A lot of marshlands. The next picture I have here is St. Augustine, and it's a fort in St. Augustine, and it's an octagon-shaped fort, and the bricks are made actually out of the seashells and
that have calcified
together that they made. This is one of the oldest cities. Actually, it is the oldest city in America. We passed a lot of military forts on the eastern seaboard, one right after another, but St. Augustine was one of our favorite places. Each afternoon they shoot a cannon, but they don't put the cannonball in it, which is good because we were actually tied to a mooring ball right outside of the fort in the water where the cannon would have landed had they shot it, but that's not what they do. The next picture here is of a pirates and an antebellum home. We passed through a lot of pirate waters and a lot of Civil War history left and right. We pretty much learned a piece of history almost every single day on the loop. We went through Savannah, Georgia, Beaufort, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. Lots of history there. And that was a really interesting part of the trip. The antebellum home here is covered with the hanging sea moss. We've got a beautiful garden with the big pillars on the white home with the dark colored shutters. And then the picture of the pirate, he's got the fancy hat with the doubloon on it and the pirate flag. And that picture came from the oldest bar in Florida that we visited, which was in Fernandina.
I remember that.
Fernandina, Florida. So consistent with history, now we have a picture of the Dismal Swamp. The Dismal Swamp was a pretty cool place. It actually is a back road canal that connects North Carolina with Virginia. Yeah.
And George Washington thought it was really critical strategically that we dig this out and make this happen so that we could supply even when the ocean.
Yeah. And one of the interesting part of the Dismal Swamp was our boat was probably one of the bigger boats that went through the Dismal Swamp. If you had a larger boat, which consistently the boats on the loop are 40 feet and plus, that's the average size, 40 and a half feet is the average size. So we're on the smaller side. So the bigger boats went around. They didn't go through the Dismal Swamp. So this is kind of a cool thing that we were able to do because we were a smaller boat. That happened to us quite a bit. Being a little bit on the smaller side, we got in places and got to see some things.
That's a bad name, but it was a fun place.
Yeah, it was really cool. And the picture here is just an explosion of green with trees and grasses and swamp. And then in the middle, there's some purple irises poking out of the middle. Chuck and I were both really excited to be able to go to Washington, D.C. We both missed our 8th grade field trip that everyone gets to go on. So we were excited to be able to go to see Mount Vernon and Washington, D.C. The pictures that I'm showing now are of Mount Vernon, the home of George Washington. And the one picture on the left has the water. And then there's a giant hill up to the very stately home on the top with 6 pillars and a bright red roof, and there's trees lining that. Top right picture has the picture of the pillars and the front porch. So now we're sitting up on the front porch. And then the bottom picture is a picture of the Andy boat, which is anchored right below that porch. So that was really some fun things we got to do, where we really got to anchor and be really invested and immersed in the environment that we were. And we literally just took our dinghy over and climbed up the hill and went and toured George Washington's home. The next pictures here are of Washington, D.C. We went to a marina there, and it was right downtown. The picture on the left is of the large downtown Capitol Yacht Club, which was founded in 1892, that we got to stay at. And in the far distance, you can see the Washington Monument. So we could walk right to the Washington Monument. The picture I put in the right is of the same Washington Monument with the reflecting pool and the large pillars from looking at the Washington Monument from the Lincoln Memorial. So it was really cool that we got to walk through everything. Now, because of COVID, not all the museums weren't open yet, but we couldn't go inside any of the museums like the Smithsonian Museum, but we spent 2 days just walking ourselves everywhere around all of the outdoor monuments, which was great. So I'm going to let Chuck take it from here and chat about our next part of our adventure.
Oh, okay. I'm going to talk to you about crab cakes. Up there in the Chesapeake, they make some really good crab cakes.
So our picture on the left is of a crab cake on a Caesar salad, a delicious crab cake on a Caesar salad.
Whatever you get there, get a crab cake.
Yeah, there's a reason why they say Maryland crab cakes on the menu. There's a reason.
So the Chesapeake is a really big area. People spend their entire boating lives right on the Chesapeake and never go anywhere. It's a fantastic body of water, and it accesses, what are all the cities?
Well, like Philadelphia, Baltimore, Annapolis, Norfolk, Virginia.
It really connects you to a lot of places through this waterway.
And of course, George Washington was there too.
So. Right, George was there. Right next to it is Delaware.
Yeah, the Delaware River.
Which is another large body of water that connects to a different group of cities. Did you already say Philadelphia?
Well, yeah, Philadelphia's from the Delaware, right? But they're all kind of. Right. It's all very, very, very connected.
Very connected, more connected than I ever realized being a Westerner.
And we got a picture here of a sailboat, a beautiful sailboat on a very calm water with trees in the background and blue sky with just a sprinkling of some clouds. Sailing is king in the Chesapeake. And the next picture is of Andy Bow with her bright red hull. And then there's just a bunch of sailboats behind her. So there's like a whole mess of sailboats.
Yep, sailing is the way to do that. Okay, so where are we at here?
We're now talking about the Delaware River.
The Delaware is next door to. You go up the Chesapeake, right, and you go across that little canal at the top.
Yeah, so you go across the Chesapeake Delaware Canal, another one of those canals.
It's a man-made that links the two.
Right.
And it was real key in the early days of transporting the goods and services. It was a big breakthrough. It saved them tons of time going out and around down the Chesapeake. So you got to time this. Okay, the tides are coming in. The tides run really strong up this Delaware, and gotta be going out with the tide, or else it's too hard to fight it. It runs about 4 or 5 knots at times, and on a boat that only goes 7 or 8 knots, that's too much of a headwind.
And then we stayed outside in the Atlantic, the entire coast of New Jersey, all the way to Sandy Hook. And then we entered the New York City Harbor. So the New York City Harbor was a challenging place, because as soon as you think that you've either crossed in front of, or a ferry's crossed in front of you and you're safe, another one is hot on your tails. So it is a busy, busy place. One of the things that was cool is that we were able to anchor right behind the Statue of Liberty. So our picture on the right side is actually of the Statue of Liberty as we're cruising by. I couldn't get a good shot from where we were anchored, but this is as we're cruising by the Statue of Liberty and our boat. It was pretty cool to be able to be so close to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty and be there in New York City. Yeah.
Busy place like that, and we had this little piece of water all to ourselves.
We did. And the picture on the left is of the Manhattan skyline. We were able to, so we've got all the different buildings and the water there, and a ferry coming across in front of us on the bottom of the screen. We were able to visit. I had family that actually lived in the Upper West Side, so we got to stay at the 79th Street Boat Basin in Riverside Park, and we walked Central Park and had lunch at Gray's Papaya Hot Dogs. So did a lot of the very typical New York things, and it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And Chuck and I, neither one of us had ever been to New York before either.
And it was pretty hairy getting through New York Harbor. Once you got to this 79th Street, you were past most of it.
Yeah.
Most of that traffic.
So the next picture is of Andy Bow in Kingston, New York. We went up the Hudson River against the current. So once again, we had to time that with the tides to be able to go at the time when you weren't fighting the current and the tides. So you try to go at slack tide, or when the current tide was going up the river. And our typical knots, we typically go about like 8 to 9 knots, but when we did the Hudson, we were down to like 4 or 5 knots an hour, which is
fighting
pretty, we were fighting going upstream. We did cruise past West Point, Sing Sing Prison, and then just north of Albany, New York is where we entered the Erie Canal. And the picture that we have here is Andy Bow. She's tied up to one of those free docks because there's a big brick restaurant on the left side of the picture with a nice patio and a deck. I think it was an old warehouse. So it's the big red brick with giant windows that turned into a restaurant, a Southern restaurant, if I remember right. And because we had cocktails and dinners there, we could tie out to the free dock right on the river. So we were able to tie up and stay there the night for free because we had dinner in the restaurant.
That's not typical.
Not typical.
But it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
If you have dinner, they'll let you stay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you gotta get a mooring slip. Sometimes it's just free.
Right.
You never know where you can anchor out.
So now we're on the Erie Canal. And the Erie Canal is fairly narrow in spots, and
it's narrow.
It connects some lakes too, so it's got old. A lot of things. It's old, and the pictures that we have here is the left side has got Andy Bow tied up to a free wall. They had these concrete walls in a lot of the towns that you could tie up to, and they actually had free water and power.
On some of them.
On some of them, yeah. So you could tie up and spend the night and then walk into town, get groceries, have dinner. The right side is a picture of a beautiful geranium plant that's hung out on one of the concrete bridges going over the Erie Canal. So the Erie Canal is not used for commercial anymore. And the locks are in pretty need of some maintenance. We actually were stuck in Waterford, New York, waiting for lock 17 to open. And lock 17 is the only guillotine style lock. So where the door actually came down from above. And what happened again?
Some of the gears broke.
Yeah, gears broke. And they had to they had to,
These are over 100 years old, and so they had to, start over and build them from scratch. So they brought in two big cranes from Pennsylvania, one to work the wall and the other to, I forget what the other one.
oh yeah, I forget
Yeah,
the other one. I think might have one on each side maybe to work the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to wait for the crane. So some people were stuck a week. Chuck and I weren't only stuck a couple days because we didn't gotten there when it first, we knew it was down because there was all kinds of social media ways they told us, but we kind of went slower up the Hudson, but we still were stuck a couple days there. One of the things about getting stuck there though is it kind of starts some of that socializing with other boats, because there was a lot of boats stuck there. Everyone was stuck in just.
That was our first
East.
experience with being friendly.
Yeah, our first experience with being friendly. Now, after you leave Waterford, which is the very first part of the Erie Canal, you actually go through 5 locks in like a mile and a half, and it's called the Flight of Locks, and you get raised 169 feet in this like mile and a half. So I wanted to do a little bit of describing of kind of what a lock is, and so the next pictures are talking about a lock. The left side, there's actually 3 pictures here, which is kind of tricky, but the left side shows you a bollard, which I'll explain here what that is in a minute. The middle picture is Andy bow, look, and then there's a rope coming down. So the way to do a lock, you either are looking for a bollard or a rope.
A bollard, it floats up and down. It's anchored to the wall, but it'll float up and down with the level of the water, and you just attach yourself to this, or you sling your rope over it and hang on.
Right. Yeah. So you either attach yourself to a bollard that floats, or you grab a rope, like in the middle picture. And then the far right picture is a picture of a boat at the bottom of a lock. So a lock is like got 2 giant concrete walls. And then there's 2 doors there's a door that opens when you approach into the lock. And then there's a door on the other side. So I'll kind of describe, you drive your boat into the chamber of the lock. You grab a rope, or you attach your boat with a floating bollard. Then the lockmaster horn goes off. The doors close behind you, and they either add water and you raise up, or they subtract water and you go down. And then they open the doors again when they've completed either the adding or the subtracting of the water, and then they sound the horn again and you can leave. We did 74 of these locks. Of course, we got much better at it as time wore on, but we had a system, and every boat's a little different. A sailboat ties off different than we do because we have those 2 great doors on our helm station that Chuck talked about. So we could access the lines and the bollards pretty easy. Some of the bigger boats or the taller boats or the sailboats, they had a little bit harder of a time to do that. Then the other thing that you do in the Erie Canal is you got to go through a lot of bridges that have to be lifted. So this is a drawbridge here. I have a picture of it.
We need about 16 feet from the top of the water to the top of our mast or our radio antennas.
Yeah. A little note, the sailboats that there's a fair number of sailboats that do the loop. I think there's only it's maybe only 30% of the total number of boats that do the loop are sailboats, but they actually, before they go into the Erie Canal, because of the certain bridges, they have to lower their masts before they go into the Erie Canal. And then they have them raised. The mast is the big tall thing in the middle of a sailboat that holds the sail. And so they have to lower that before they go in the canal, and then they have it raised again in the Great Lakes. So now, or mobile, yeah, sometimes they do them, not that. So now we're actually at the end of the Erie Canal, and we're going into Buffalo. At the end of the Erie Canal, you you reach the Niagara River.
You started to tell them that you call ahead to the bridge tender, and then they raise the bridge.
Oh yeah, you do. You have to call ahead.
You go through.
This is when you use that radio for the bridge tenders and the lock tenders. You're always
Radio.
calling them and chatting with them. So at the end of the Erie Canal is Buffalo. And you were actually on the Niagara River, and you darn well better turn left to go to Buffalo, because if you turn right, you're going over Niagara Falls. And that's not a good thing. So you turn left and you go into Buffalo. And so I actually have a picture here of Niagara Falls with the water coming off the falls and creating the mist from below. We did a little side trip out there when we were in Buffalo. The top right picture is the Anchor Bar, which is where the original buffalo wings originated. And Buffalo smells like General Mills. It smells like Cheerios because they make a lot of Cheerios in Buffalo. So I have a little picture of the General Mills factory on the bottom right. So now we're in Lake Erie. Lake Erie and Lake Huron, they don't have a lot of protected anchorages. Pretty much most of their places that we anchored were man-made. There's not a lot of natural ones.
The rock break wall.
Yeah, like a rock break wall. And on this left picture is a picture of a lighthouse with a rock break wall that we anchored behind.
You can get a slip or you can anchor there. Usually we just anchor.
Yeah, we just anchored.
Inside that protected area.
Because there's just not a lot of, the coast has not got a lot of those nooks and crannies on Lake Erie or Lake Huron. We had originally hoped to go into Canada, but because of COVID, it was closed, so we couldn't do that. The top right picture is of the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that we were able to go see. It's a glassed pyramid shaped building. And then in the front, it's in big, like people-sized red letters. It says "Long Live Rock." That's the picture there. The other interesting thing about Lake Erie is that I learned, another piece of history, is that there was a battle fought on the War of 1812. And so that tagline, "Don't give up the ship," that is from Put-in Bay in Lake Erie. So I have a little picture of the flag, "Don't give up the ship."
We have a nice monument there they built.
Yeah. Now I have a picture. This is Lake Erie, and it's total turquoise water here. And the sky is got a very darkish, bluish turquoise. You could hardly tell where the sky and the water ends. We went from Lake Erie into the Detroit River, up Lake St. Clair, and we left the boat actually in Sheboygan, Michigan, to come home for a couple months. We had some family events that we wanted to do, our 40th high school reunion. So we came home for a little bit at that time frame. So the next pictures are when we came back to the boat, we went to Mackinac Island. Mackinac Island is an island that has no cars.
Northern Michigan.
In northern Michigan, right where Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are together. No cars, they have a lot of fudge, and they have the Grand Hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. And so I've got a picture of the bay here with all the boats out there, and Andy Bo's out there in that bay somewhere, looking down onto the beautiful town. And then the right picture is of the Grand Hotel, which is a big white hotel. There's a carriage outside with a gentleman running the horses on the carriage.
I think there were probably at least 150 teams of draft horses carrying the wagons. Everything is delivered by wagon. Everything is, the trash truck is a horse-drawn carriage. The milk truck, horse-drawn carriage. Everything is horses.
Up top of Lake Michigan is Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, and this is a picture of it. I thought it was really interesting that Lake Michigan had this very turquoise blue water and these giant sand dunes, and most of the coastline on the top part of Lake Michigan, because we went down the east side of Lake Michigan. You can go down the west side through Wisconsin, but we picked Michigan side. But there's a lot of sandy beaches, really pretty area of Lake Michigan. We heard that there's a very steep sandy beach in this picture that goes down to the turquoise water, this view of the green vegetation on the beach, on the dunes. But we heard that if you walk all the way down to the water from this steep hill, that they're going to charge you $3,000 to come and rescue you if you decide you don't want to climb back up. It's super steep.
It's really steep. And
We were there.
Yeah. The other favorite parts about Lake Michigan is we went to a fish fry. We were in Muskegon, Michigan, and we went out into the lake, and the lake was rowdy, super rowdy. We had following seas. It was pushing us around everywhere. And we were probably only went a couple miles, and we're like, this is not fun. This is a little scary. And we turned around and went back in. And it was Friday, and there was a fish fry at the local Fraternal Order of Eagles in Muskegon, Michigan. So we had walleye and perch, and the center picture here of Lake Michigan is my French fries and our pieces of walleye and coleslaw from the fish fry. The left side is a really pretty picture of the calm blue water and a lighthouse and the very steep sandy shoreline. Right side is the picture of Fishtown. Yeah,
Hey,
Fishtown.
Marie, it's Leslie. That's my neighborhood.
Yeah, I
neighborhood.
know. It was.
I live a couple blocks from there now.
We loved your neighborhood. It was awesome. And so we really enjoyed our time here in northern Michigan. It was a lot of fun.
We went there with Ted and his family.
Yeah, we did. We did to see them. Weather kind of plays havoc with you at times, and it kind of pushed us. We didn't get to spend as much time as we wanted to in the southern part of Michigan because there was a nasty storm coming through. And so we went from St. Joe's, Michigan over to Chicago. It was about a 50-mile day. And we cruised over to Chicago, mostly because of weather. And we were glad we did, because we would have been stuck somewhere for a week had we not done that. You actually go on through downtown Chicago, and the picture that I'm showing now is of a couple of the bridges in downtown Chicago. The Chicago skyline is behind the river, and you go right through downtown on your boat.
This is the Illinois River here, right?
Well, I think it's called the Chicago River, which ends up to be the Illinois River. Yeah. And you go past the shortest bridge in the entire loop in the Chicago area. So if your boat is taller than 19 feet 6 inches, you actually cannot do the loop because it's a fixed bridge, and so you actually can't do the loop if your boat's taller than that. That's another reason why a lot of the sailboats don't raise their masts until they even get to Mobile, because they have to lower it again to go through these bridges in Chicago. And as soon as you leave Chicago, you are where the tugboat is king. Talk about the tugboats, Chuck.
It's all barges and barges. I'm talking about mile after mile. So many barges. It's crazy. This is the Illinois River now. It's a fairly big river, actually. It's not hard to have barge traffic and pleasure crafts on this. We saw typically three barges wide and 6 barges long, all strapped together. Typically, it's about it's 18 barges and then one big tug pushing them. They vary the configuration. They'll tie them together in shorter amounts for heavier loads. Sometimes they'll have empty ones. And the biggest string of barges that we ever saw was it 24, I think.
Yeah, it was like 6 barges long and 4 barges across.
But I think they were empty. There's a reason why they had more of them. That was the absolute biggest.
And the other thing about these barges, the tugboat captains have their own language. It's very difficult to understand. I'm thinking the majority of them
They
are
mutter.
they mutter, and they have a very strong Southern accent. The majority of them have to be from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and you get to learn what. Okay, tell them what the on the one and on the two is. So this is all they say. It's on the one or on the two. I'll get you on the one or on the two.
The deal is you have to really communicate how you're passing, where you're passing, and they can't get out of your way. So they'll tell you, they want you on their port side or on their starboard side. And they'll let you know. If you are in doubt, you ask them.
Yeah,
it's not too difficult to get the hang of things.
We did learn that they actually. One of the benefits of having a woman navigator is that the tugboat captains and the bridge tenders and the lock tenders all really like to talk to girls on the radio. So
I think they're lonely.
We think they're lonely. Okay, so we're actually in the country of Mark Twain. And we kind of started listening to, when we got on the Illinois River, we started listening to the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, because Chuck and I wanted to go to Hannibal, Missouri on the Mississippi to see the home of Mark Twain. So in the middle here, we have a picture of Mark Twain's white clapboard home and his neighbor's stone home. It's like a two-story.
We left the boat.
Oh yeah, we didn't.
Met my sister, and then we got in the car and we went upstream about 100 miles to Hannibal.
Yeah, to Hannibal, Missouri. And we actually also got to tour Tom Sawyer's
side trip we took.
We got to tour the cave. So I have a picture of the cave.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, there's a cave. Okay. On the right side, where Tom Sawyer, it's the adventures of Tom Sawyer happened in the cave, and Becky Thatcher and everything.
They got lost.
And they got lost.
This is all Mark Twain's real life world. This is where he grew up.
Yeah. So we did have Chuck's sister and her husband with us, and we were in St. Louis. And in St. Louis,
we're back on the boat now.
We're back on the boat now. And the left side, where we got a picture of the St. Louis Arch, the big arch with their skyline behind and the river in front.
Stainless
and in St. Louis, there's a canal and a lock to avoid a series of falls just upriver from the arch. A day or two before us arriving to this area, a 45-foot sailboat missed the canal and the lock and ended up going through this area that they call the chain of rocks. And we're following this story because we were right there. We were all, kind of doing this as they were doing it. And the passengers were rescued. The boat eventually succumbed to the river and sank, but we were right on top of it. We were following everything that was happening. And and right after they do this, we're going through this same area, and you're kind of thinking, oh yeah, you can kind of see how it happened, even though it's a really crazy thing to have happen. You kind of could see how it happened because, you could go get a cup of coffee and you come back and you miss that one sign that says this way, and it's just a lot of mishaps. Errors just happen sometimes.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. I mean, we sat on the bottom waiting for a tide to rise in South Carolina. We heard a heated conversation between a barge captain and two other boats that were.
Are you getting head?
No.
Okay.
No. This is weird. Two other boats that were in his path on the Cumberland River. We even nicked our prop in an anchorage on Pickwick Lake. So this stuff happens, and you do your best.
If nothing happens, you didn't really go
boating. Yeah. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen out there. Paducah was one of our favorite little towns that we stopped in, and I put this picture here of this is the city dock in Paducah, and it's the river. We're on the Ohio River now.
Ohio River.
Yeah. So we've gone through the Mississippi to the Ohio, the Illinois to the Mississippi to the Ohio.
And believe it or not, the Mississippi was smaller than
The Ohio, where we
it
were.
was also smaller than the Illinois.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
part that
the
we were
Ohio-
on.
The Ohio was huge.
So this picture I put here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boats that are 40 to 50 feet long. And then one little Andy bow that's 32 feet. So this is kind of this is to show you that, you know, we were on the smaller side. We got into places because we were on the smaller side. We spent less money in gas and diesel because we were on the smaller side. That was kind of nice. Oh, tell them about this picture, Chuck.
Oh, we're in Tennessee.
We're in
This-
Tennessee on the Tennessee River now.
This picture is an oyster farm. We had to turn off the Tennessee River, go up a little tributary, and we were looking at like a schematic map, following the old creek bed, because that was the only place there was enough water for us. So we bobbed and weaved real slow up this little creek almost to this place where they grow freshwater pearls. And I'm told it's the only place they grow freshwater pearls in the United States.
Yeah, and so the picture is a very calm bay on the river, and it's got, what would you call those, like sticks that they hang the?
Yeah, they're floating this it looks like a skeleton of sticks.
Yeah.
And they suspend the string of oysters from there. And believe it or not, they sell as many clams for the shells to other oyster farmers around the world than as much of those as they do oysters.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating. The little clams, they sell them to the other growers because they take little pellets from the clam shell. That's what they insert into the other oysters all around the world to grow their oysters from.
Yeah. So we're kind of in the middle. These pictures are just pictures of river life. It's got a picture of Marie on a tire swing in a big giant oak tree swinging as the fall was coming when we were on the rivers, which was really pretty. And then there's white cliffs along the Tennessee River, and we've got red trees and orange trees and green trees and yellow trees. Really kind of a great fall explosion.
Tire swing, that's the place where
The tire swing, I put that up there because we had to kill a week in Bolton, Mississippi, because we were in a lock, and in the middle of the lock, we lost reverse. So we lost our transmission while we were in the middle of the lock. So we did that lock twice. We went up, turned around. Well, we couldn't. Yeah, we turned around and then went back to a marina that was just up the upriver from the lock, and we were there for a week. Chuck had to put in a new transmission.
Oh, this is also near Elvis's home.
Oh yeah, it was right
By
by
Tupelo,
Tupelo,
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Another real short day cruise.
And then we filter back out of the rivers into Mobile, Alabama. I have a picture of a shrimp boat they have these big long arms that come out from the boat on a shrimp boat with huge nets. And then that got some dolphins because we're so excited to see dolphins again. We got back out into the river. And then the picture on the right is us anchored out before we're going to do our golf crossing. And you can see it's got the front of the boat and two other boats anchored out in the bay. And you can see our burgie, the flag that I showed you earlier hanging. That's where our flag hung out.
We were anchored there because they told us the Blue Angels
Yeah.
would be training. But anyway, they took a vacation. Didn't fly that day.
They took a vacation. So now we go across the sorry, somebody was text messaging me. I wanted to make sure it wasn't about here. One of our favorite parts about the Gulf Coast was Apalachicola. It was a cool little town that had great beer and artsy fun town. And then we crossed from Carabel, Florida, across the Gulf of Mexico, and you wait for a good weather window, and we went to Steinhatchee, Florida. And that part of Florida is all about fishing. Lots and lots of fishing camps and great places to fish.
We had to wait out the weather a couple days before we made that crossing.
Our farthest point west, we got some picture. Farthest point south was we went to Key West. We got some pictures of Key West here, a great little bay shot with a tiki bar. We were very into tiki bars the entire trip. We were into tiki bars with Andy Bow out anchored past the tiki bar in Isla Morada. The fort in a picture of a cannon, because again, there's a fort down in Key West. Start with a fort, end with a fort. There's lots of forts. And then the beautiful gardens of Key West, lots of beautiful homes with the Caribbean gardens out front, orchids and hanging from the palm trees. Oh, and we're done because the last picture is a sunset on the ocean. Beautiful sunset. So we have some tips for you from our boating life of the year. First of all, never pass up a place to dump your wastewater or fill your fresh water.
Or fuel.
Or fuel. Never pass up a place to do that. What do you have to add?
Get to your anchorage before dark.
Oh yeah, and go easy on the French fries.
Okay, that's it.
Marie and Chuck, do you guys want to take a few questions?
Sure. Let me get out of this and go. I can stop sharing the screen here. Let's see. Back to Zoom. Stop share. Okay, I think I stopped sharing. Yeah? Did I stop
You got
sharing?
it. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
So I guess if anybody has a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, this is Kate from China. I would like to ask a question.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Marie. I was following your Facebook, so it's very exciting to hear your talk. Thank you for sharing with us. I got up early this morning to hear you.
Oh, you're so awesome.
And I wanted to ask you about weather. Like, what was your worst weather that you encountered? Where were you?
Someone waited out a tornado.
Oh, yeah. So probably interesting. The worst weather we probably had was like last month. We went to Key West again. We'd gone there last winter and we went back there for a couple weeks. And we were coming back from Key West through some rowdy stuff. And we actually had to hide for like 3 days off of Marco Island because a tornado came through. We're in the boat and we knew we were avoiding weather. So we went to a nice protected bay, but we're in the boat and both of our phones go off that there's a tornado warning and get to shelter immediately. And we're like, where do we go? I don't know what we do. lay down on the bottom of the boat, I guess. I'm not really sure what to do, but yeah, it all worked out fine. We rode it out, but it was kind of rowdy, but we had picked a good spot to hide. And so we watched videos and hid and
yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you're off
yeah.
mute. Okay, go ahead.
This is Bob Hart.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Hi, this has been great. And I have a question. When you were talking about being on the Illinois River, and then I think you were talking about the Mississippi, does the Illinois River flow into the Mississippi? Is that how you got into the Mississippi from the Great Lakes?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it flows into the Mississippi.
And
right about
after it joins, that's also where the
Missouri.
Missouri
Yeah.
joins.
So the
Okay.
Illinois goes in, then the Missouri goes in.
Okay.
I think it was really close to Grafton.
Alton and Grafton, yes.
Grafton, I think, is where the Illinois dumps into the Mississippi. Pretty close to there.
All right. Well, thank you. It's been great.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. This is Karen. I'm just wondering, what did you do to learn about how to go on a trip like this and all the things you need to know about traveling by boat?
Captain Ron.
Captain Ron.
Ron.
No, Chuck's dad has had, and Chuck and his dad together have had boats up in the Northwest. And actually Chuck's dad had a couple Nordic tugs, the same kind of boat that we ended up purchasing. And so we've spent time, and especially him has spent time with his dad, boating with his dad up in the Northwest.
We weren't totally new to the North.
Yeah, we weren't totally new to boating. We learned a lot, but we weren't totally new to it.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Hi, this is Jolene.
Oh, hi, Jolene.
Hello. My question is what's next?
So we have the boat for sale because it's difficult to own a boat that lives on the ocean when you live in Colorado. So I believe that our next boating adventure will probably purchase another boat up in the Northwest, like the Seattle area, because we would like to do the inside passage to Alaska. But that's probably a couple of years out. But
Nice.
we have this one for sale because it's quite expensive to move it, because it's not the kind that can go on a regular trailer. It has to be hauled by a semi. So it's like
Cool, thanks.
it would be like $20,000 to move it to the Northwest. So it almost makes sense to sell it and buy another boat up there.
Marie?
I've got a question.
Oh yeah, David, what's your question?
So
Why are we laughing before you
I
even
haven't said
ask?
anything yet. It's not that funny. So I think the general rule of thumb for boat owners is you sail for 3 days and you fix for 1 day. How much time did you spend fixing things that break?
I'm gonna let Chuck answer that question.
I spent all day today in there hanging by my ankles. Yeah, we go along for a while. You're right. This is an older boat.
It's a 1989.
We had to change the transmission out at one point, which was a big deal. Had to pull out the sink and winch things up and out, and I'm standing here. I have to crawl through the kitchen sink and then go down, and with this heavy metal thing.
Yeah, what I'm not sure all of you guys know, Chuck is a big guy. He's like 6'2", and so
I don't fit in there.
he doesn't fit in the kitchen sink.
And then we had the prop tuned at one place. We've hauled out a couple of times, done some repairs along the way. We've been working on the boat here, so you're not too far off. And maybe it's not quite as bad as 3 to 1, but
I'm not sure if it's as bad if you live on it too. You know how sometimes, if your house, if you leave something, it seems to have more problems. If you're like constantly dealing with stuff every single day, it doesn't seem to build up as much. But I know what an impeller is now.
That was great. Thanks.
This is Terry Nettles. I have a question.
Sure. What, Terry?
So I got on like 5 minutes past the time, I guess, maybe when you started. So you may have already covered this, but how did you map out your route? Obviously you had to do that ahead of time, right?
Well, there's actually a lot of work already done on that, because there's like a cruising association that there's several guidebooks about doing the loop. So we had there was a lot of assistance in that, and there's also some great navigational tools now on my iPad and on my phone, like Active Captain, and so we kind of knew where we were going every single day just from following those different resources. But you still have to map out what you're going to do each day, and you have to come up with plan A and plan B, because they say the worst thing to have when you're boating or cruising is a schedule.
So did you try to map it out according to the weather conditions? Like, in other words, where it was cold up in the north and stuff, did you try to start like that in the summertime?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
and then the wintertime
yeah.
you ended down south. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we started in Florida and went up the eastern seaboard. So we
Mhm.
were in Florida in the winter, the South in the winter. We were in the Chesapeake and the Great Lakes in the summer. We were in the rivers in the fall.
Great.
And
Oh,
then,
that's awesome.
like the Carolinas in the spring. Yeah, it was perfect. It
And
was
one
great.
last question, and that is, did the waters ever get really, really rough and do you get seasick? Because
We
I
didn't
get
really-
seasick sort of.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple days where it was uncomfortable.
Okay.
But there's a lot of great weather tools now where you can know what the waves are going to be, like the heights of the waves and which way the wind is coming. And you can say, I'm not going out if the waves are, higher than 2.5, 3 feet. I'm just
Right.
not going to do it. And then you
can usually avoid them.
you can usually just
Okay.
hang out for a day and wait for we call it a weather window, wait
Mhm.
for the weather window. And
It's coastal cruising. We're not crossing the ocean.
yeah, a lot of it
Yeah,
was
that's
protected,
true.
too.
Yeah, that is true. Nice. And I bet you enjoyed the stars
Small
at
trip.
night. Oh, wow.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Thank you for answering my questions. I
Oh,
loved
you're
your talk.
welcome.
You
Thanks.
guys, it was great.
Hey, Marie, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, so I'm worried about my husband. He's followed your entire journey on a map in our camper.
Does he want to buy a boat?
I'm thinking he might want to buy a boat. So I need some counseling. We saw a trail right where we are where we could roller ski in the winter. I'm just saying we may have issues.
Hey.
All right. Well, Marie and Chuck, thank you so much.